Dragon Ballers, if you're looking to buy Dragon Ball Super or One Piece sealed product, make sure to get 5% off using my link to Mystic TCG down in the description. You can also sell cards to them using their Facebook link, which is also down in the description. Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, I want to recommend to you guys 5 rogue decks to try out for January 2023. This is the first video of its kind for the year, so pretty exciting. And we are kind of in the Dragon Ball Super off season, right? We're not seeing any super major competitive events come up. Hopefully we'll hear about some organized play coming up soon, but this is the perfect time. Just go to your locals, kick back, play some Dragon Ball, try out some new strategies. But at the same time, even though it is a little bit more of like a casual season, the recent ban list, and particularly the Hit to God ceiling, changes a lot about the format, both in a competitive and casual sense. So these decks will generally all benefit from that and be pretty fun to play in the process. So we'll talk about those in today's video. But first, if you're new, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell so never miss a Dragon Ball Super video. And if you guys do want to help support the channel, it does really help me out if you want to buy any of the cards in this video, or any trading cards for that matter. If you were to use my link in the description to TCG Player, I really would appreciate it. Anyways, let's jump right in talking about the first deck, which is the Spaceship GT deck. Now, I do have a profile for this here up on the channel, which you are more than welcome to go check out. But basically, I'll give you the sales pitch here. There are a lot of things I like about this deck, with both the ban list and the recent Zenkai Dash Pack support. Now, I should just get this out of the way and say that it seems like there's been some delays with the Zenkai Dash Pack stuff, which is unfortunate, but also not unheard of as far as Bandai goes. I mean, they're shipping from the other part of the world, so you got to give them some benefit of the doubt there, right? But what's going on, it seems like there's just been delays for the Zenkai Dash Pack cards, so locals haven't gotten them yet. And that makes a lot of sense because typically when new promos come out, they generally get posted for sale immediately, and I haven't seen any new posts about selling the Zenkai Dash Pack cards. So hopefully those are coming in the next couple weeks before the end of January, but I guess time remains to be seen on that. You're still perfectly playable on things like Untap while you're testing and getting ready for IRL stuff with these decks. But anyways, the reason I like Spaceship GT so much, the recent ban list hit SS4 Gogeta and Sin Shenron again. So with those hits happening, hopefully what we're going to see is this kind of power threshold between Sin and Gogeta and all the other red decks. Hopefully we're going to start to see that gap kind of close a little bit. And from what I've been playing of this Spaceship GT deck, I do like it quite a bit. I do think it's pretty powerful. It might not be better than Gogeta or Sin even in their nerfed states, but I think the power disparity is a lot closer. So that makes me want to play this on like a rogue level. And I do like this deck because it plays very differently than Sin and Gogeta, so you get a bit of a different play style. And what I also think is very cool, that thanks to the Zenkai Dash Pack cards, this deck is now able to be played in almost a completely different way than it was before, and that kind of revolves a lot around the unison. So the thing with the Spaceship GT deck, it was kind of dead on arrival when Smoke Dragon was introduced to the format, because there are some scenarios where you can actually boost your unison to enough markers to play around Smoke Dragon, but if they have a good amount of attackers and swing into it, drop it down to 7 markers, they can smoke it. And of course, if you go second as GT, there's almost no way to stop them from smoking it. That's a really big problem. So what we're doing is we're leaning into Baby Juvenile Parasite, and we're actually able to do that successfully with the new Z leader. Now, the way I play the deck, which I explained in the profile, I never actually use the Activate Main. The Activate Main is actually pretty bad if you think about it, because yes, you can give your unison barrier to play around Smoke Dragon, which already we talked about. If you go second, that doesn't really do anything, but even if you go first, all they have to do is attack and take 1 marker off your unison. And don't forget, when a unison loses a marker, all of its skills reset, so it'll lose barrier. So it doesn't actually solve much of a problem, but that's okay because the Z leader is still really good. What you can do is you can swing with your Z leader and start putting cards under your Baby unison. And Baby is another unison that benefits from having additional cards underneath it, so you're making your unison all the tankier, and all your battle cards in the deck for the most part are still able to be played from under a unison. It does not have to be under a spaceship specifically. So I really like that strategy of just like letting my opponent smoke my unison if they want to, and then just going into Baby and establishing that as like a really tanky and disturbing unison, because you're pulling apart their board, you're swinging for 20k. It's really powerful. And of course we have cards like Journey to the Cosmos, which is just such an it's a card with an overabundance of words, so it can't be bad, right? It's got removal, it's got double strike, it allows you to play your boss monster and attack with it 4 times, comes out for 1 energy. Excellent card. And yeah, I've really been having a lot of fun playing this deck, so I wanted to recommend it to you guys. Next up, we have Supreme Kai of Time, the Chrono Keeper, which honestly might single-handedly put black back on the map. This deck is really strong and really aggressive. This leader has had a fair amount of support thrown at it over the years, and it hasn't really stuck in the sense of making it even like a super good rogue tier deck. So what they finally did was print 2 busted cards like Trunks and Goten challenging the Dark Empire. Trunks is an incredible unison. It's 19k, but it's actually deceptively a 24k because every time you swing with it, it's going to combo 5k, so you're getting that 24k swing there. And you have the Goten, which is kind of like a Gogeta throwing the Dark Empire light mode, because it's a 1-drop 25 double striker. No, it doesn't kill a card, but it's very efficient because if you play it from the warp, it doesn't pull from your hand resources, and if you do play it out of hand, it actually draws a card. So highly efficient there. And of course, it can be played for Overwhelm if you need to in a pinch. And that's the thing with Spring Kai of Time, is that you need Overwhelms like every single turn. So the fact that you have a card like Goten that also serves as an Overwhelm but can also be played for 1 in another scenario is incredibly efficient. The other thing too is like the effect on Spring Kai of Time is looked at as very powerful. I don't think you look at anyone or find anyone that would say it's not a powerful effect, but it's been very hard to pull off over the years because this deck does want to use Wormhole via its unison, and Wormhole itself is also a powerful skill, but it's always just been very hard to string those effects together. But now that we have the Pansy battle card to essentially rejuvenate a life when Kai uses her ability to keep your Overwhelms on board, you're actually playing an aggressive Overwhelm deck that has the ability to maintain a board state, which hasn't really been a thing in the past. So this is like a brand new deck in its field. It seems like it's going to be really strong aggro. I think it's looking to be really solid. Then we have Yellow Trunks Vegeta. So even though this deck did manage to go all the way to 3rd place at the US National Tournament, I'm still comfortable putting it in Rogue tier because we haven't really seen it do much else outside of that. Like, look at last year, Android 16 went all the way to 2nd place. I still wouldn't call Android 16 a meta deck, right? It just doesn't really make sense with the lack of other accolades the deck has at its disposal. But still, it's a really good deck, and it's got a lot of cool new tools. So the thing about Trunks is that it's got the really powerful Z leader, where you're able to use the double strike on the regular awakened side, and then at some point in the game go into the Z leader for the critical damage. And it also works in tandem with the SSB Vegeta SS Trunks Father Son Bonds boss monster, which gets an indirect buff because of the ban to Godsling technique Trunks. And that actually just reminded me, I forgot to mention on the Spring Kai of Time slide, that deck gets a huge buff just from the fact that God Sealing is not a card anymore. That deck could single-handedly lose to a well-timed God Sealing, so that's a big buff for Spring Kai of Time. But anyways, back to Yellow Trunks. This boss monster gets a big buff from that thing being gone because this is not a deflect boss monster. So the only color you have to worry about actually playing this card into is typically going to be the yellow mirror match, which, like, you know, you just play around it as you need to in that matchup. But what's cool is in yellow mirrors, they're typically going to arrest the Trunks Vegeta, and your Z leader restands the card, so that actually gets around that problem. Really neat. And what I also like too is that this deck has not only gotten support from the Zenkai Dash Pack and from Trunks being banned, but it's also gotten support in the form of the recent tournament pack with Meta Cooler Infinite Terror. And I love building decks that play like a little bit of an archetype package. Like, you know, in Trunks Vegeta, you're still going to play your 1-drop Trunks and Vegetas. That's unavoidable. But you can also include cool cards like Meta Cooler Infinite Terror. Counter attack limit 1 if your leader's mono yellow. Negate the attack and play this card. Permanent if you have a Z leader or Z battle card in play. You can activate this card's counter skill from your hand without paying its energy cost. And then permanent bond to. This gains plus 5,000 and barrier. So it's another barrier card in a deck that has a ton of barrier. It's a 15k threat and it's a free negate. This is just awesome. Like, this is better than a blocker negate. Well, maybe not better than a blocker negate. It doesn't cost a life compared to a blocker negate, but also only stops 1 attack. So it's really good. It's really up there with a blocker negate when you're on your Z leader. So for that reason, I very much like the way these cards all string together. Then we have Blue Beerus, another deck that benefits greatly from the ban of Trunks Godsling technique. And this is another deck that managed top US Nationals, but only at 1 slot, so we're still going to be comfortable calling it Rogue. But yeah, this deck gets a lot better from the Trunks ban because Crimson's probably still going to go on to be a very popular deck, but you can't easily answer SS4 Vegeta Rise of the Super Warrior anymore. So your ramp is a lot more easily attainable. You still do got to watch out for some stuff being able to counter Whis from on high. Like, I don't know, at Nationals, I was playing Desperate Measures in the main deck, and you might run into some Crimson builds that have counters for Whis. So your early ramp, you might still want to be careful about. But regardless, though, the fact that SS4 Vegeta almost has no counter that actually stops its effect is a really good thing Beerus has going for it. And I've said it in many videos, I do think Beerus is probably the premier ramp deck, and I don't think that really changes. There's probably some discussion to be had about like Beerus versus SS4 Vegeta versus the reboot ramp Goku from, I think, set 18, or was it 19, whichever one it was. But yeah, there's a discussion to be had there, but I still like Beerus the most out of all those decks. I like the fact that the leader has a built-in tap 16 win con, because if you remember back to Gen Con season, when we were playing SS4 Vegeta ramp, we were playing Gogeta Frenzied Warrior, which is a tap 15 win con. For 1 more energy, you have that built into your leader, and you don't have to draw a boss monster that you only want to play 1 or 2 of, right? So for that reason, I really like Beerus a lot. The last one here, I feel like I'm going to slightly regret putting out into the world. It feels just like putting bad energy out into the world, but you could theoretically go ahead and play Cell Reboot because of the God Sealing ban. God Sealing was basically a floodgate that made it a lot harder to play Perfect Force Cell, which in and of itself leads to a combo in this deck where you can take your opponent's entire hand away. And don't get me wrong, like, Cell and Green has great answers to Unisons, so God Sealing wasn't like an unbeatable answer, but anytime you had to deal with a Unison on Blue's board, it was setting you back an entire turn from playing your Perfect Force Cell. So with that out of the way, the Perfect Force Cell play is a lot more easy to do, so it does make playing Perfect Force Cell and Reboot Cell a lot more attractive, but you still got to worry about things like red. Red has always been a good check to Reboot Cell and green control decks in general, so you got to figure out a way to beat the red matchup. But also, I wouldn't advise thinking that your hand rep combo is always going to be untouched now, because your part of that combo is revolving around a 2-cost Unison, so you still do got to worry about Smoke Dragon. But yeah, this deck does overall seem to be a lot stronger with the God Sealing ban. And the other cool thing too is Goku Fate Arrival is a card that Cell didn't have access to before in the form of barrier removal. Even though Cell was a green deck that can kill just about any card in the game, it was actually struggling a bit with barrier cards. But now with Goku Fate Arrivals being a thing, that's not really a problem anymore. And Goku is a card without deflect, so it also benefits from the God Sealing hit. But anyways, guys, that's what I got for you in today's video. My recommendations with my reasoning for rogue decks to play in this format. Let me know in the comments below what rogue decks you guys are playing this meta, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video.